The next verse is Avyaktoyamachintyoyam avikaryoyamuchyate tasmadevam viditvainam nanushochitumarhasi. In this verse, Lord Krishna is trying to sum up what is the nature of I. As we saw, we are not just little individual that we think we are. That little individuality that I have is with reference to the body and mind. But as we have seen that the body and mind are not I, but I am independent of the body and mind. In fact, who I am, the relationship between the body and mind and consciousness subsequently we saw is that of Satyam and Mithya. Satyam is defined as that which is independently existing, and Mithya is said to be that which has a dependent existence. So we examined the body and we saw that the body is nothing but cells. Cells are nothing but atoms. Atoms are nothing but particles, and it can be divided further and further until the time only a concept remains. And that concept depends upon consciousness for its existence. And that means that I, the conscious being, is independent of the body and mind, but the body and mind are not independent of consciousness. In fact, it's not only one body and mind, it is all different bodies, whether it is a human body or it is the animal body or aquatic creatures, any reptiles, anything that you take, the relationship remains the same. That every body and mind resolves in consciousness. Also, if you take insentient beings, so rocks, water, every other entity that you see which is not seeming to be a living entity, that also in fact is nothing but atoms, particles, and then ultimately a concept, and the concept depends on consciousness. Now, in this verse, this is what is summarized. It says Atma is achintyaha. Achintyaha means something which it cannot be objectified. Anything that you objectify is an object. So what is an object includes the entire universe. Every object, tree, animals, creatures, mountains, rivers, this body, that body, everything is categorized as object. Okay? And Atma is that which is remaining as self-evident, something which is known to you without objectifying it. The other word which is used is avikarya. Avikarya, that which does not undergo any modification. So Atma does not undergo any modification. Everything in this world is subject to time and space, and therefore they are all changing all the time. Everything is changing within time and space framework, and therefore it is not something which remains as it is. Now we have to look at the relationship between time, space and consciousness, because the entire world, including sentient and insentient, we have said is not independent of consciousness. It just resolves in consciousness, and consciousness is independent of everything. Now let us look at what is the relationship between consciousness and time and space framework. What is time? If I look into the time, in fact, it is the same thing. 1 hour can be further divided in 60 minutes. 1 minute can be further divided in 60 seconds. 1 second can be further divided in microsecond. and that microsecond in nanosecond. So therefore, in fact, even this time which seems so real ultimately resolves in a concept, and that concept is existing only in consciousness. So now the relationship is time is dependent on consciousness, consciousness is independent of time. Now the final relationship we have to examine is the relationship between consciousness and space. The space is again a relative term. Generally, we think about space in terms of distance. And if you look at the distance, we measure the distance in terms of, let's say, 1 foot. Now 1 foot is a very defined measure, right? So there is a line, you can say it is as long as 1 foot. But if you look at how many points are in between the finite distance of 1 feet, there are infinite points. That means that that 1 foot can be further and further divided up to infinity. And that means that even the concept of space is something which is a space, there is no real object, it is a concept, and that concept depends upon consciousness. So therefore now what we have discovered is the fact that not only every object which is living and non-living depend upon consciousness, but also the time and space framework itself depends upon consciousness, whereas consciousness is something which is independent of everything. That is a very, very big discovery, because who I thought myself was this tiny little creature which had very, very small life. Okay, it had a birth date which was given, let's say, if 50 years ago, 60 years ago, 70 years ago, it's nothing in terms of countless flow of time. And it may survive 100 years, but even that is in fact quite insignificant. And while we exist, we are nothing but a small little dot in the map of the universe. So if this is the understanding that I have of myself as being a very small little entity, basically I'm a helpless being, and I'm all the time confronted with this vast universe over which I have very little control. And I'm always going to be wanting in terms of my fulfillment, in terms of my sense of adequacy, in terms of my self-esteem, if my opinion of myself remains that slight little individual in this vast universe. So this is where Lord Krishna says, Tasmat evam viditvainam. This is a complete different view of the world and of yourself. If you think that the entire world depends upon you, upon examination, not just thinking or trying to believe in some positive thinking, we are not talking about reprogramming ourselves to think that we are great. No, it is based on inquiry, based upon looking at the relationship between I, the conscious being, and the entire world, including time and space framework. And it's a discovery of the fact that I am the truth of the whole universe. The entire universe depends upon me for its existence. And this is what he says, if you know that, tasmat evam viditva, knowing that, na tvam shochitum arhasi. Where is the sorrow? The sorrow totally disappears for that person out of the understanding of the reality of nature of I, which is based on inquiry. It's not something which is based on some kind of a make-believe thinking. And this is the vision that Gita has about who you are and what is your essential nature. Avyaktoyam achintyoyam avikaryo yamuchyate tasmadevam viditvainam nanushochitumarhasi.